The Valorian High Council stands in their grand chamber, the air thick with judgment. 3 young warriors kneel before them, heads held high despite the weight of their sentence. Their names are etched in the records of nobility, their bloodline traced back to the founders of their empire. Yet none of that matters now, for they have defied the path chosen for them, and the council does not tolerate disobedience. The eldest of the 3 Lyrians speaks first, her voice sharp and unwavering. She demands to know the reasoning behind their punishment. Her violet eyes burn with defiance, her body tense with the urge to fight. She is a warrior, one of the strongest of their generation, bred for battle, and yet she stands accused of weakness. The second sister, Rilza, is silent, calculating, her golden hair cascading over her shoulders. She is the most intelligent among them, a strategist and scientist whose mind has shaped the very weapons that people wield. She does not speak, yet her gaze moves from one council member to another, reading their body language, sensing their intentions. She already knows their fate has been decided. The youngest Valka clenches her fists, her heart pounding, her emotions barely contained. She is the unpredictable one, the one who follows instinct rather than logic. Her connection to the energy of the universe is stronger than any before her. Her power is untamed, and it scares the elders. They do not understand her, and what they do not understand they seek to control. The High Counselor, a being of ancient wisdom with silver skin and piercing eyes, rises from his seat. His voice booms through the chamber. Emotion is a disease, he declares. Passion is a weakness. Love is a curse. You 3 have allowed these things to infect you, and for that you must be punished. You have rejected the traditions of our people, refused the unions arranged for you, denied the call of duty. Lyrian lifts her chin, her voice defiant. We do not reject our people, we reject control. We are more than pawns to be married off for political gain. We are warriors, we are thinkers, we are alive, do not have the right to choose. The council laughs, a cold, hollow sound. The right to choose belongs only to those who prove themselves worthy of choice. You 3 have failed the Valorian way. You are stripped of rank and privilege. You are no longer daughters of nobility. You are outcasts, you are exiled. The room falls into silence, the weight of the words crashing down upon them. Exile is worse than death. Exile means being cast out into the darkness of space, abandoned, without resources, without allies, without purpose. Rilza speaks now, her voice measured. Where are you sending us? Olaf the Counselor replies, a primitive world, an unpredictable world, one where emotions rule over logic, one where love and passion dictate the actions of its people. You will live among them. You will learn what it means to be powerless. If you prove your worth, perhaps you will return, but do not expect mercy. The guards move in, seizing their arms, forcing them toward the docking bay. They struggle for a moment, instinct demanding they fight, but they are warriors, and warriors know when a battle is lost. The journey is long, silent, the ship a relic stripped of all but the most basic technology, meant to keep them alive until they reach their destination. They stare at the vast expanse of space, each lost in thought, none willing to admit the fear creeping into their minds. Earth Valka whispers, finally, a world ruled by chaos, by emotion. What if we do not survive? Lyrian grips her shoulder. We survive, because we must. We survive, because we are Valorian, no matter what they say. Rilza closes her eyes, calculating, planning. There must be a way to turn this punishment into something more. The ship jolts, alarms blare. They are entering the planet's atmosphere. 2 fast systems, failing their bodies, brace for impact. Hearts pounding, the ground rushes up to meet them, and then darkness. Pain spreads through Lyrian's body as she regains consciousness, the metallic taste of blood in her mouth, her head pounding, the scent of burning metal thick in the air. Her limbs feel heavy, her vision blurred, but she forces herself up, instincts screaming at her to assess the situation, to find the others, to survive. Rilza is already awake, crouched beside a flickering console, her fingers gliding over the cracked surface of the controls, her expression unreadable. The ship is destroyed, she says, voice flat. Systems are gone, communication offline, we are stranded. Valka groans from where she lies sprawled across the floor, her body aching, every nerve in her system screaming in protest. She blinks, trying to focus, trying to ignore the strange pull in her chest, an unfamiliar energy thrumming beneath her skin. Something about this planet is different. She feels it in her bones, in her blood. Lurian stumbles toward the broken viewport, staring out into the alien landscape beyond dense towering trees, stretched toward a sky that burns with an unfamiliar glow. The air is thick with moisture, the sounds of creatures rustling in the distance. The planet feels alive in a way she does not understand. Earth, Valka mutters, pushing herself upright, her gaze flickering between her sisters, her breathing uneven. The gravity is heavier than I expected. The air is strange. Adaptation will take time, Rilza says, already scanning the wreckage for supplies. We have limited resources, no weapons, no tools. If we are discovered, we will be vulnerable. We must blend and gather information, find a way to survive until we determine our next move. Lurian exhales, slowly, discipline returning, logic taking hold. We separate. She decides. We study them from different angles, 3 approaches, 3 perspectives. We learn everything we can and regroup in one lunar cycle. She glances at the wreckage. We leave no trace of who we are, we become them. Rilza nods agreement, already calculating probabilities, weighing risks. Valka hesitates, but she knows there is no other choice. The decision is made. They strip themselves of anything that marks them as Valorian, their armor, their insignias, their weapons hidden beneath the wreckage. They take only what can be concealed, what can pass as human. Their enhanced bodies will protect them, their intellect will guide them, but the greatest challenge will be their emotions. Lurian walks alone through the thick forest, her body adjusting to the uneven terrain, the sounds, the sensations, every instinct screaming at her to remain on guard. She approaches a road, vehicles roaring past, humans moving in clusters, their conversations a blur of words she does not yet understand. She observes them, watches their movements, their expressions, their interactions. She must infiltrate their society, become one of them. And yet the thought unsettles her. She has always been in control, always known her purpose. Now she is nothing, no rank, no mission, no name. Rilza finds herself drawn to the structures of learning, the vast buildings filled with books, with knowledge. She watches the humans, their thirst for understanding, their passion for discovery. It is chaotic, inefficient, yet fascinating. She listens, she studies, she absorbs. Valka drifts through the streets of a small town, her senses overwhelmed by the energy of the people, the raw emotions that pulse through them. She watches as a child cries, as a stranger comforts them, as laughter bursts from a group of friends. The connection between them is unlike anything she has ever known. For the first time, she wonders if emotions are not a weakness, but a strength. Time passes too quickly. They learn to mimic the humans, their speech, their mannerisms, their habits. They each carve a place within this strange world, yet something stirs within them, an unfamiliar pull, a conflict between who they were and who they are becoming. Lurian finds herself drawn to a human who challenges her, who refuses to fear her. Despite the sharpness of her presence, Rilza discovers that logic alone cannot answer every question, that sometimes the heart must lead where the mind cannot. Valka feels the weight of something she cannot name, something dangerous, intoxicating, something that terrifies her more than anything she has ever faced. Love. The word lingers in their minds, foreign yet undeniable. They were sent here as punishment, but Earth is changing them, reshaping them in ways they never expected, in ways that may make returning home impossible. Lurian moves through the crowded streets, her senses razor sharp, every face, every voice, every movement, his catalogue, analyzed, processed. Humans are unpredictable, their emotions shifting with no warning, their priorities constantly changing. Yet, despite the disorder, there is a strange kind of balance, an unseen force that binds them together. She does not understand it, but she cannot ignore it. She has integrated herself into their world, adopting a name that blends among them. Her sharp instincts and combat training have led her to a place where aggression is controlled, where power is respected, a gym, a place where humans push their bodies to their limits. She watches them struggle, sweat, grit their teeth through pain and exhaustion, all for the sake of strength. A man approaches her, his presence steady, his eyes holding no fear despite the intensity she knows radiates from her. He is different from the others, confident but not arrogant, powerful but not reckless. He studies her as she studies him, and for the first time since her exile, she feels something unfamiliar, an urge to engage, not as a strategist, not as a warrior, but as something else, something more. Rilza spends her days within towering walls of knowledge. Humans have built vast institutions dedicated to learning, and yet their knowledge is fractured, incomplete, their theories based on limited understanding of the universe. She listens as they argue over equations, debate the nature of existence, marvel at discoveries that are primitive compared to what she has known yet. There is something about their passion that intrigues her. They seek answers, not because they must, but because they want to, because the unknown calls to them. She watches one human in particular, a professor whose mind is sharp, whose ideas are bold. He does not see her as a student, he sees her as an equal. Their conversations stretch long into the night, exchanging thoughts that challenge and provoke. She should be above this, above the need for validation. Yet, when he looks at her with admiration, with respect, she feels a pull she does not understand. Volker drifts through the town, watching, listening, feeling. Humans are raw, unguarded. They wear their emotions on their faces, in their voices, in the way they move through the world. She does not know how to handle it, how to process the depth of their feelings. It overwhelms her, and yet she cannot turn away. A musician captures her attention, his voice raw, his words filled with something that stirs within her. She does not know why she is drawn to him, only that when he plays, when he sings, she feels as if something inside her is unlocking, breaking free. She approaches him one evening, drawn by the sound of his voice. He notices her smiles, invites her to sit. She does not understand why, but she does. She listens as he speaks of things she has never considered: love, loss, hope, dreams. His words mean nothing, and yet they mean everything. Time passes too quickly. They are no longer just observers. They are part of this world, no longer standing at a distance, but living within it. Lyrian feels the heat of competition, the thrill of a challenge that is not about war, but about self-mastery. Rilza finds herself questioning everything she was taught. Emotions are not weakness, they are fuel. They drive discovery, they drive creation. Volker learns that music is more than sound. It is emotion given form. It is power in its own way, as potent as any weapon. And yet the fear lingers in the back of their minds, the knowledge that this is not their world, that they are intruders, that at any moment everything could be ripped away from them. They were sent here as punishment, but now they wonder, was it punishment at all, or was it freedom? They do not speak of it, but they feel it, a quiet shift within themselves, a crack in the foundation of who they were. They are changing. Earth is changing them, and they do not know if they can ever go back. Lyrian stands in the center of the gym, sweat dripping from her skin, muscles burning, breath steady. She has never trained like this before, not for war, not for survival, but for herself, for the challenge of it. The humans around her push themselves past their limits, driven by something she cannot yet name, something more than discipline, more than duty. Across from her stands the man who has been watching her since she arrived. His name is Adrian, and he is unlike any human she has encountered. He does not fear her, does not flinch. Under the sharpness of her gaze, he sees her as an equal, as a rival, as something else, something she does not have the words for. He moves first, a quick jab testing her reaction. She dodges, barely breathing. He grins. She does not know why, but the sight of it stirs something deep within her. He moves again, faster, stronger, his body honed by years of training. But she is faster, she is stronger, she has always been, but for some reason she holds back. She does not understand it, this hesitation, this desire to see what he can do without overwhelming him. He does not need to know what she is, what she can do, but he studies her as if he already suspects, as if he sees something beneath the surface. You fight like someone who has never lost, he says between breaths, and she does not know how to answer. Rilza stands at the front of the lecture hall, listening to the professor speak of theories that are centuries behind what she already knows, yet she is captivated by the passion in his voice, the way he speaks of discovery, as if it is the greatest pursuit in the universe. Her people have always seen knowledge as a tool, as a weapon, but humans see it as something more, something that belongs to all, not just the worthy. After class, he finds her, asks her opinion on a concept most of his students struggle to grasp. She answers without thinking, her response effortless. His eyes light up, not with suspicion, but with curiosity, admiration. She should not feel pride in that, and yet she does. He invites her to join him in his research, to test theories that he believes could change the way humans understand the cosmos. She knows she should decline, she knows she should keep her distance, But she does not. She wants to see what he will discover. She wants to see the way his mind works. She wants to understand why she cares. Valka sits in the corner of the dimly lit bar, watching the musician play his voice raw with emotion, his fingers moving across the strings of his guitar as if the music is part of him. She does not understand how sound can make her feel so much, how his voice alone can stir something inside her that she cannot name. He notices her like he always does, his eyes finding hers even through the crowd. He finishes his song and moves toward her, sliding into the seat across from her. Without hesitation, you always watch, but you never say anything, he says, his voice warm, inviting. She does not know how to respond, because she does not know why she watches. She only knows that she cannot look away. He places the guitar between them, fingers tapping against the wood. Play something, he says. She hesitates. She has never touched an instrument before. She does not know how, but he smiles as if he already expects that, as if he is not asking for skill, but for something else. She reaches out, fingers pressing against the strings, and in that moment something shifts inside her. She does not know if it is the music or the way he is looking at her, but she feels something she has never felt before, something terrifying, something thrilling, something she cannot control. Lurian, Rilza, and Valka each find themselves standing at the edge of something unknown, something that defies everything they were taught. They were sent here as punishment, stripped of their identities, cast into a world of chaos and emotion, yet now they are beginning to wonder if this world is where they were meant to be all along. And that thought is more dangerous than anything they have ever faced before. Lurian stands outside the gym, staring at the city lights, her body still humming from the fight, from the way Adrian had pushed her, challenged her, made her feel something sharp and real. She is trained with the best warriors of her world, fought battles that determined the fate of entire fleets, yet none of it had ever felt as raw as this, a simple match between two people. No war, no duty, no greater purpose, just the thrill of the fight and the way he had looked at her afterward. He steps out of the building, towel slung over his shoulder, sweat still glistening on his skin. He moves beside her, close enough that she can feel the heat radiating from him. Humans run hot, their bodies inefficient in energy use, but in this moment she does not find it a weakness. "You were holding back," he says, no accusation, just fact. She turns to him, meeting his gaze. She should deny it, pretend, but something about Adrian makes her want to be honest, even when she knows she should not. "I did not want to hurt you," she says, simple, truthful. He exhales something like a laugh, but not mocking, not dismissive. "I can take care of myself," he says. "You don't have to protect me." She does not understand this feeling, this strange ache in her chest, but before she can respond, he takes a step closer, just enough to make her aware of the space between them. His voice drops slightly, his expression unreadable. "But I think you already know that." Rilza moves through the university halls, her mind a storm of calculations and contradictions. She should not be here, should not be entertaining the thought of staying, yet every time she listens to the professor speak, she feels something she cannot explain. He has begun to notice her in ways that make her uneasy, not with suspicion, but with curiosity. He asks her questions, not just about science, but about her thoughts, her opinions, as if he sees her as more than just another student, more than just a mind to be tested. One evening he invites her to his office, notebooks scattered across his desk, equations scribbled in frantic bursts of inspiration. His excitement is palpable, and she feels a strange pull toward it, as if his passion is something she wants to understand, something she wants to share. "I think we are on the verge of something incredible," he says, eyes alight with possibility, "but I need someone who sees things differently, someone who is not bound by what we already know, someone like you." She should walk away, she should keep her distance, but she does not. Valka sits on the rooftop of a small building, the musician beside her, guitar resting on his lap. The night air is cool, the distant hum of the city blending with the sound of his fingers plucking soft chords. "You never talk about yourself," he says, not a question, just an observation. She watches him carefully. His voice is always steady, but tonight there is something different in it, something uncertain. "There is nothing to say," she replies, too quickly, too flatly. He sighs, tilting his head to look at her. "You ever think maybe you're scared of letting someone in?" The words strike something deep inside her, something raw, something she has spent her entire life ignoring. Emotions or weakness. Attachment is dangerous. She was taught this from the moment she could understand language, yet sitting here beside him, feeling the warmth of his presence, hearing the quiet honesty in his voice, she begins to wonder if everything she was taught was wrong. He begins to play again, a song softer than the others, slow, his voice carrying a weight she does not fully understand yet. When he sings, when she closes her eyes and lets the sound wash over her, she feels something foreign, something terrifying, something she is not sure she wants to escape. Lurian, Rilza, and Valka have always known their purpose, have always understood their place in the universe, yet now, for the first time, they feel unmoored, adrift in something they cannot control, something that feels too much like belonging, too much like home. And that realization is more dangerous than exile, more dangerous than any enemy they have ever faced, because it means they are no longer just Valorian, no longer just warriors. They are something else, something new, something their people would never understand. Something that feels an awful lot like human. Lurian grips the edge of the training mat, muscles tense, breathing steady. Adrian circles, her eyes locked on hers, measuring, testing, waiting for an opening. But she does not give him one. She has learned his patterns, his habits, the way he shifts his weight. Before a strike, the slight hesitation in his left side for an old injury. She knows she can defeat him easily, yet she does not. She does not understand why she lets the fight last longer than necessary, why she meets his intensity with just enough resistance to make him believe he has a chance. Then he moves too fast, too unexpected, and suddenly she is on her back, his weight pressing down, pinning her to the mat, his hands gripping her wrists, his breath warm against her skin. "Got you," he says, a grin tugging at his lips, but there is something in his expression, something deeper than victory, something unreadable. Her body reacts before she can think, flipping him off of her in a single movement, reversing their positions, pinning him down instead. But she does not move away, does not let go. Their faces are too close, her heart pounding in a way that has nothing to do with combat. She should get up, she should say something sharp, distant, remove herself from this moment, but she does not. "You fight like someone who is afraid to let go," he says, voice low, steady. She does not answer because she does not have an answer. Rilza stands beside the professor, watching the stars through the observatory glass. His excitement is infectious, even though what he sees is nothing compared to what she has known. He points out constellations, speaks of theories that are half correct, half flawed, yet full of potential. She has never met someone so dedicated to the pursuit of knowledge, not because it is required, not because it is expected, but because he simply loves it. It is strange to her, this concept of passion, not for duty, not for power, but for something intangible, something purely personal. "You never talk about where you come from," he says, his voice soft, curious, not pressing, just waiting. She watches the stars, thinking of home, of the cold precision of her people, of the expectations she was meant to fulfill. She does not know why she answers, perhaps because she wants him to understand, even as she cannot tell him the truth. "I come from a place where knowledge is power, where emotions are considered distractions," she says. He turns to her eyes, full of something warm, something accepting. "And what do you think?" he asks. She does not know anymore. Valka walks beside the musician through the quiet streets of the city, his hands tucked into his jacket, the night air cool and crisp. They do not speak for a long time, just walking, letting the silence settle between them, yet it is not uncomfortable. She has never known silence like this, silence that does not demand silence, that does not feel empty, but full of unspoken thoughts, of emotions too complicated to name. "You ever think about staying?" he asks suddenly, his voice careful but not hesitant. She stops walking, turns to him, something sharp twisting in her chest. She has always known this was temporary, that she did not belong here, that eventually she would leave, but the thought of leaving now, of never hearing his voice again, of never feeling this strange warmth in her chest when he looks at her, it terrifies her more than exile ever did. "I cannot," she says, but the words feel like a lie even as she speaks them. He studies her for a long moment, then nods as if he understands more than she wants him to, as if he sees the battle raging inside her. "Okay," he says, but his voice is quiet, and she does not know why that makes it worse. Lyrian, Rilza, and Valka each stand at the edge of something they cannot control, something they do not fully understand. They were sent here to be punished, to learn the weakness of humanity, yet everything they have discovered has only made them question everything they thought they knew. They are no longer just surviving, they are no longer just learning, they are becoming, and they do not know if they will ever be able to turn back. Lyrian stands outside the gym, staring at the neon lights reflected in the wet pavement. Her mind, a war zone of thoughts and emotions she does not want to name. She should leave, should disappear into the night before she allows herself to sink any deeper into this world, yet she does not move because she knows that if she does, she will not be able to stop herself from looking back. The door swings open behind her, footsteps echoing Adrian, his presence unmistakable, solid, steady, familiar. She does not turn, does not acknowledge him, but he does not leave. Instead, he steps beside her close enough that she can feel the warmth radiating from his skin. "You gonna tell me what's going on, or are we just gonna stand here?" he asks, voice low and unreadable. She exhales, slow, steady, forces her hands to unclench at her sides. She has always been in control, always known her purpose, but here with him she feels something dangerously close to uncertainty. "I cannot stay," she says, finally, voice barely above a whisper. He is quiet for a moment, then he laughs, but there is no humor in it, just something tired, something raw. "You keep saying that," he says, "but you never go." She turns to him, then eyes locking onto his, the way he looks at her, like he is not afraid of her, like he is not waiting for her to explain herself, like he is simply waiting for her to be honest. And she does not know if she can be. Rilza stands in the university lab, staring at the holographic model flickering in front of her. The professor speaks animatedly beside her, explaining theories, calculations, ideas that he is convinced will change everything. She listens, absorbing every word, but her mind is elsewhere, trapped between what she knows and what she feels. He turns to her suddenly, eyes bright with excitement, his expression open, vulnerable. "You know, I've never met anyone like you," he says, and for some reason that simple statement shakes her more than it should. She swallows the instinct to deflect, to retreat into logic, but he is watching her too closely, waiting for something she does not know how to give. There is a reason for that, she says, and she wonders if he can hear the weight of truth beneath the words. "Then tell me," he says, quiet, certain. And for the first time she wants to. Valka grips the edges of the wooden bar, top knuckles white, as she listens to the sound of the musician's voice, carrying through the small space, every note, every word wrapping around her, pulling her under like a tide she cannot fight. She should not be here, should not let herself feel this way, but she cannot leave, cannot pull herself away from the way his voice makes her chest ache, makes her feel something she cannot name. When the song ends, he finds her, just like he always does, sliding into the seat beside her, close, but not too close, watching her like he sees the storm raging inside her. "You feel it too, don't you?" he asks, voice quiet, steady. She closes her eyes for a moment, breathing through the sharp pull in her chest. When she looks at him, she knows that he already has his answer. And that terrifies her more than anything. Lyrian, Rilza, and Valka are standing at the edge of something irreversible, something that cannot be undone. They were sent here to be punished, to learn to suffer, yet, instead, they have found something none of them expected, something dangerous, something intoxicating, something they do not want to lose. But the universe does not care what they want, and soon they will be forced to make a choice, one that will change everything. Lyrian knows she should not be here, standing in Adrian's apartment, the air between them thick with unspoken words. She should have walked away the moment she felt the pull, the moment she realized she was not just observing humanity, but becoming part of it. But she could not leave, not when he looked at her like this, not when her own heart betrayed her with its relentless pounding. "You keep saying you cannot stay, but you never go," Adrian says, his voice steady, but his eyes searching, testing, waiting for something from her, something she does not know how to give. She does not answer, because she does not know how. She has fought wars, led soldiers into battle, stood before commanders without a trace of fear. But here in this moment, she feels unarmed, vulnerable, exposed, and it terrifies her more than anything ever has. Adrian steps closer, his presence filling the space between them. "You are always in control, always holding back. But I see it," he says quietly. "You do not have to fight this, not with me." Her hands curl into fists at her sides, not from anger, but from the overwhelming weight of what she wants, what she cannot allow herself, to how she has never been weak, never hesitated, never let anything dictate her path, but right now she is afraid not of him, not of the world, but of herself. Rilza stares at the professor across the dimly lit lab, the holographic model between them flickering with unfinished calculations. The theories they have been working on are incomplete, flawed, in ways he does not yet understand, but she does. She should leave, should pull away before she falls too deep into this, before she loses sight of who she is, who she was meant to be, but she cannot. "You do not belong here, do you?" he says, softly studying her, the way he always does, not with suspicion, but with a quiet knowing that makes her feel more exposed than she ever has. She swallows the lump in her throat, looks away, but he does not stop watching her, waiting. "You are not like anyone I have ever met," he continues, voice careful, "and I do not just mean your intelligence, I mean the way you look at the world, like you are seeing it for the first time, like you do not know whether to admire it or run from it." Her chest tightens because he is right, because she does not know what to do anymore, because she has never been this lost before. Valka sits on the rooftop, the city stretching below her, lights flickering like dying stars, the musician beside her strumming his guitar softly, the sound filling the space between them. "You are leaving, aren't you?" he asks, not accusing, not demanding, just knowing, just accepting. She does not answer, because she does not need to. He sighs, setting the guitar aside, turning to face her fully. "You do not have to say it, but I know." Something inside her cracks at the quiet understanding in his voice. She expected anger, expected frustration, expected anything but this. "I do not belong here," she says, finally, the words feeling like a wound she has just reopened. "Maybe you do not belong anywhere," he says. "Maybe that is why you are always running." The words hit harder than she wants them to, because deep down she knows they are true. She has always been running, always been searching for something she was never meant to have, and now that she has found it, she is terrified of what it means. Lurian, Rilza, and Valka all know the truth. They cannot stay, no matter how much they want to, no matter how deeply they have let themselves become part of this world, because this was never meant to be permanent, and the moment they forget that is the moment they lose everything. But knowing that does not make it hurt any less. Lyrian stands at the edge of the city, the cold night air pressing against her skin, her heart pounding harder than it ever has. She should not be hesitating, should not be looking back, but she cannot help herself. She cannot stop thinking about Adrian, about the way he looked at her, the way he made her feel like she was more than just a soldier, more than just a mission. Footsteps approach behind her, steady, familiar. She does not have to turn to know who it is. "You are really going this time," Adrian says, his voice steady, but underneath it she hears something else, something raw. "I have to," she says, forcing the words out, forcing herself to believe them. "Why?" he asks, his voice quiet, not demanding, just waiting, just hoping. "Because I was never meant to stay," she says, "because I do not belong here, because if I do not leave now, I may never be able to." She expects him to argue, expects him to try to stop her, but he does not. He just looks at her, his jaw tight, his hands clenched at his sides. "Then go," he says finally. And for the first time she wonders if she is making a mistake. Rilza stands in the empty lab, staring at the equations she had written, calculations that no human would ever be able to solve. Not yet, maybe not ever. The professor had not been here when she arrived. She had made sure of that, because she could not face him, could not let him see her like this. She picks up a pen, hesitates for only a moment before writing one final equation, one final piece of knowledge, a gift or a curse. She does not know, but it is all she can give. She steps back, looking at the symbols, the final truth she will leave behind. Then she turns and walks away, knowing she can never return. Valka stands in the darkened bar, the musician's guitar resting against the stool where he always sits, the stage empty, the air thick with the memory of music. She does not know why she came here, why she let herself take one last look at something she knows she can never have. Then the door opens, and he is their eyes meeting hers across the space between them, his expression unreadable. "So this is it," he says, voice quiet, careful. She nods, not trusting herself to speak. He steps forward just enough that she can see the sadness in his face, the acceptance, the understanding. "I knew you would leave," he says. "You were never meant to stay, but I wanted to believe just for a little while." Her chest tightens. She does not know how to respond, does not know if there is anything she can say that will make this any easier. He exhales, shaking his head with a small bitter smile. "Just promise me one thing," he says. She hesitates, then nods. "Do not forget," he says, "do not pretend this never happened." She swallows hard, feels something break inside her, but she does not let it show. "I will not," she says, and somehow she knows it is the truth. Lorene, Rilza, and Valka stand at the edge of the city, at the edge of everything they have ever known. The ship waits for them, sleek, silent, ready to take them away from all of this, from everything they have found, from everything they have begun to love. None of them speak as they step inside, as the doors close, as the engines hum to life, but they do not need to. Because the silence says everything. Because they all know what they are leaving behind. Because they all know that even if they return to the stars, even if they go back to the life they once knew, they will never truly be the same again.